Welcome to the Franchise Woman podcast, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships forged. I'm Rebecca Monet, CEO and Chief Scientist at Zoracle Profiles, along with my co-host, community advocate, speaker, author, and entrepreneur, Tracy Kawa. Our special guests today are the Alternative Board, also known as TAB franchise owners, Denise O'Neill and Blair Koch. Denise O'Neill is the CEO and owner of TAB in Washington and Baltimore. She's been a strategic business coach and facilitator for almost 10 years. As a coach, Denise specializes in sales and customer marketing and developing strong business cultures that focuses on engagement, accountability, and strategic planning. Denise is passionate about developing managers into leaders and has co-designed Next Generation Leaders training with her husband, Marty O'Neill. Blair Koch gets up every morning to change people's lives, to help Denver business owners collaborate and thrive, to grow their businesses, build their communities, and cultivate an unparalleled quality of life for themselves and their families. There's one thing that Blair knows for sure. Small to medium-sized businesses hold the key to local and regional success. They are the economic engine to the state, country, and ultimately the world. To be able to help these businesses thrive and allow their owners to live the rich, rewarding life they deserve is what Blair Koch is passionate about. Ladies, I have been anxiously anticipating this interview for more than 2 months. So thank you for getting on the schedule, and we're so excited to have you.
Glad to be here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, your bios hold so much personality. I just love the way they read. And I'm always excited to hear how somebody came into their current profession. Can you each share a little bit of your backgrounds and let us know how you came to TAB?
Sure, I'll get started. I came to TAB from a Fortune 100 background. So classically trained marketing sales, general manager of large consumer packaged goods companies. And as a result of that, spent a lot of time traveling and realized that there was an opportunity for me to actually run a business closer to home, and had a young family, and with my husband decided that buying a TAB franchise would allow us to work together, spend less time traveling, and more time kind of working locally with our business owners in the community. And hence we bought TAB.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how about you, Blair?
Yeah, no, thank you. So mine's similar and yet different. So I too come from a background where I was traveling 80+% of the time. I started with little companies like IBM, General Motors, and EDS, where I learned how not to do things. And then I went right into the startup world, predominantly technology. So helping startups theoretically go public and then grow and scale from there. And I hit the point in my life where I was like, I don't want to travel. I really love the small to mid-sized business. And that led me to TAB.
I think this is a common story of entrepreneurs and business owners and franchisees. Is life was still great outside of business ownership, but you needed more work-life balance, you want more time with your family, less travel. And so you choose to get into a franchise. So it's a very common theme that we see with franchise owners. The difference here is you are helping other businesses grow. So you've brought all this beautiful experience with you. So my question to you is, are there common issues that you see that a business deals with? That day in and day out, boom, 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 these are the questions and these are the problems.
There are common issues.
Yeah, there's most of them are common issues, actually, right? So probably 75 to 80% are the same: sales, marketing, finance, HR, planning, or lack thereof in many cases, partners, exit or succession planning. These are, and it goes on. I mean, these are all the common things. I think one other common thing that's not, people don't necessarily recognize is like, oh, I'm working so hard in my business. I'm exhausted. my business runs my life versus business is fun. There's always a solution. Some are better than others, but yes, business is hard, but let's make it fun, right? So I think those are some central themes.
And
Are
I
you
think
seeing the
that,
same thing, Denise?
yeah, I think I ditto to what Blair said, except I think that we look at things in regards to business cycles and size of the business. And so, our smaller businesses, which might be 1 million, 2 million, 3 million in annual revenue, they are all about, as Blair said, driving the business, right? Driving sales strategy. And then we get to businesses that are more than 10 to 20, 30 million, are established small, where, they really are worried about, how do I scale? And what kind of processes do I need? And what kind of technology do I need to purchase? And so, their issues are slightly different from our smaller businesses. And then we have larger businesses too, 60 to 150 million or more. And so there's a shift there with some of their transitional issues with, how do I develop a high performing team? How do I develop leaders out of my managers? How do I recruit and cultivate this team? And so what is exciting for us as TAB business owners is we get to play a role with the people we coach and the people on our peer advisory boards at every cycle of their business. And so it's exciting.
And then just another quick add on to what Denise shared, because all totally true. I mean, every business owner is different, just like every business is different, but many of them, regardless of size, don't necessarily have the vision or know some of the questions they should be asking, like, gee, I really need to start to build that leadership team so that I can transition out whatever that is, right? So that I have more equity in the business. Strategically, right? For some, the word strategic is a scary word at the smaller end, but like, there's so many things converging in our world right now so fast. Like, you have to be thinking and doing today for something you want to have in the future, right? And those are common themes approached very differently, but for some, it's like, you have to start to think about this.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here wondering if you have to put on a different hat as a coach for each size business that you deal with, or is it one process that you kind of tailor to each size company?
I think it is something that is a process, and that process has to be tailored to the company. So it is both a process, but it's also individualized because their businesses are very different. Some are service industry business, some are product businesses, and some are family businesses. And so you might take that process that worked for another company of similar size at the same point of expansion, and yet it has to be tailored to who the key players are, what their levels of expertise are, what family members may be involved in the business. So there's a lot of tailorization that occurs to be able to ensure that you're guiding and informing the business owner in the right strategy.
What I would also share, though, because what Denise said is spot on, at the end of the day, we're very much us as individuals, as people. We are transparent, we make ourselves vulnerable, because that also helps, right, everybody that we work with be more transparent and more vulnerable. And if sometimes we have to get on someone's case and like, what are we doing here? Like, you're not doing what you should be doing, right? I mean, we have to have those hard conversations. And then there's other times where, you just have to be super supportive and do the nurturing and whatever. But we are always our own person. And that's really important, because the relationships we have are so intimate, deeply, deeply personal relationships.
Wow. I love hearing that as a small business owner myself, that there is a process and there are some stages of growth that every business goes through, and certain challenges that we experience as we grow. So there's a process, but there's also this intimacy between the coach and the business owner, or that leadership team that you're working with, that includes transparency and genuineness. And tailoring, as Denise said, tailoring these solutions or processes or conversations or whatever it is you're having based on their needs at that point and based on who that coaching client is. So it's not one size fits all, but there is a methodology. There is some kind of a process. This to me is just fascinating. So as you're working with your business owners, the idea of trust is paramount, I would think, because they're sharing with you some financials and intimate details. Talk to me about that process a little bit. When someone selects you as a coach, how do you build that trust with them where they feel comfortable sharing, their pain points, their issues that they're having?
So I think trust is best established right at the beginning of the coaching session. And also for us, it's also trust established in the peer advisory board scenario as well. And so TAB has something called Tabinos, and Tabinos is the values and the actions that we agree to live by, whether it's between a coach and an individual that you're working with, or whether it's between the facilitator of a board and each other. And so Tabinos, kind of our honor code, a place to create a safe zone for everyone, is very important. And so, we work hard to establish that with a one-to-one with a person we're coaching, and also between the board and with the board. So for me, when I develop a relationship with my client, we use profiles and assessments. We use the DISC assessment, and I do share about my DISC and how I'm wired, so they know how best to relate with me. And when I say I'm going to do something, it's the old-fashioned edict that we should all live by, which is you deliver on what you promise, and you make sure that the exchanges that happen that are intimate and should not be shared with others are not shared beyond those walls, and you build confidence of that person in you by delivering again on the promises that you make or the discussions that you have, and keeping those quiet and between you and them.
Yeah.
Agreed. The other place where we start that trust process, or for sure I do, and I suspect Denise does as well, is actually in our sales process. Because in our sales process, right, that's actually where retention begins. But that trust is during that journey of getting to know one another, we're opening up and telling stories about ourselves, how we got here, stories about other members, not mentioning names. And some are very difficult stories. Some are very like, oh my gosh, really? And you have to do that, because once you get into the coaching and the peer groups, sometimes what people bring to the table has nothing to do with business and everything to do with personal. When you have grown men, both in their one-on-one coaching sessions and board meetings, in tears because they're going through a horrific divorce. Or, and when that stuff happens, aging parents, kids stuff, right, whatever, it is not about the business. Like, I'm just going to do my bare minimum to get by with the business. I can barely keep my head from exploding and keep things straight. And that's trust. That's like, I'm okay to cry or to let it out or to share this really deeply painful thing for me.
I think that's so true, Blair. And I know, like, from my own example of coaching a business owner whose nephew was a partner, and the nephew passed away on a golf course on a Saturday morning. And the second call that the primary owner made was to me. The first call was to the mother.
Wow.
And so when you know that someone holds that relationship in such high regard that you're getting the second phone call on a Saturday, like you realize the impact and the commitment that you are making, to your business owners. And so, it is a very respectful relationship and a warm relationship with the people that we work with.
Wow, that's such a heartwarming story.
It is. Both of those stories. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Blair, I'd like to hear more about how you treat your clients holistically. I love this holistic approach that you have.
Sure. I think like we start down the business path, right? And we're like, it's about the business, taking the business, doing better, whatever it is that you want. But where we actually start is with the personal vision. Like, what do you want from life? Do you want to retire, semi-retire? When? What do you want to go do? Who do you want to go do it with? Because you're not going to be on your deathbed, so to speak, not to be morbid, but you're not going to be on your deathbed saying, gee, I wish I worked another hour. You're just not. And, some people are like, I'm always going to work. That's what I do. That's what makes me happy. And that's okay, but there's still more to life. And so part of that holistic thing and part of building leaders, right, at the CEO level and the leadership team is, yes, there's times when we work really hard, but you have to model the way and set the example and take time for yourself.
Mhm.
Because if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of others, your family, your business, right? It doesn't happen. And so I think there's this component of, somebody might bring an idea like, oh, I'm going to go buy this company, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, wait a minute. 2 months ago, we were talking about starting exit planning, and you were talking about how you wanted to spend more time with right. And so you have to look at that whole picture, because in fact, much as we love our businesses and we do, or certainly most of us do, you have to be able to look at the big picture. And if your employees see you slaving to the business, they're not going to be there long, because
Mhm.
most of them don't want to do that. Right.
Wow.
True. What are your thoughts on that, Denise? It's more than the business approach. It's a bigger picture than that.
I think, as Blair said, we all need to have a personal vision that is lined up next to our business vision.
Mhm.
And we should also realize that we go through different passages of life. I love Gail Shee's book, Passages. And that what might have been your personal vision at 30 is definitely going to change at 40, and is going to change again at 45 and 50. And so updating that personal vision and understanding that the business can help you achieve that vision if you allow it to. So we have a peer advisory board where, the board weighed in on a decision as to whether a female business owner should have a second child. And she will say, this baby was born because my tab board weighed in and tipped the scale, and
Go, girl, go.
But that's also the board that said, what are you doing? You can work from home a couple mornings a week. What are you doing? You need to have a housekeeper. You're running a business. You need help at home. And so the executive coach, the board, is an intimate, sounding board for them to help them enrich their lives and reach their goals. But as Tab said, or as Blair said, their personal visions will change, sometimes erratically, and so we have to call that out and say, what is happening here? Are we having a stressful moment? Be careful, right? Think about what you're doing. Versus are we really thinking about how to make these businesses work to support your life dream, your personal goals? And so I think that the executive coaching can help with that, and I certainly think that the peer advisory boards help keep people on focus.
Yeah.
They do. And another component to that, because that is all true, and that's where the boards and the accountability become so powerful, as well as the one-on-one coaching. But also, as we just discussed a little while ago, things happen in life that are out of your control.
Mhm.
Things to other family members, things to you personally. I had a gentleman, we were working on building his leadership team. They were going to transition, buy him out. And he got terminal cancer before he was 50. 2 young kids, young wife, right? that flipped things. You want to talk about changing the personal vision. What do we go do now? And so that's what we did. And the board was there for him. And from a coaching perspective, I was there to support. But like, you don't know what life's going to bring you. And so you have to be thinking ahead, but also in the moment as well, and enjoying, your kids start little. And then the next thing you know, they're up there and you're like, wait, what happened?
Wow.
Yeah. So we have to be adaptable. We need to be flexible as situations arise, but still have a big picture plan that's a holistic plan. Now, you've kind of hinted at already much of what you do with the board advisory groups and your one-to-one coaching. Can you tell us a little more of how TAB is different than a mastermind group or other peer groups or consulting or coaching that someone might be able to find within their local marketplace? Tell us how TAB is unique.
I think of TAB as being action oriented. So in my past, I've sat on mastermind groups, I've run mastermind groups, and you can't help but love the creative flow of ideas that occur at those groups. But what happens is that very few of those ideas get put into action. There's always a gap between these wonderful ideas and then tailoring, honing them down into how do I make this work for me at the business that I own or that I run? And so I believe that what TAB does well is take you from masters of idea to masters of idea into action. And that accountability that the peer board advisories give you at TAB and that the executive coaches give you at TAB is a very different mechanism. I think that's very important. And then secondly, our strategic planning tool. So TAB has a proprietary collaborative strategic planning tool. It's in the cloud. And it is a wonderful process that guides people to be reflective about their personal vision, their business vision, which we've just been talking about, to, SWOT analysis, to brand differentiation, to then looking at what are the opportunities that exist for you in a one-year plan. And then how does that boil down to 30-day plans or 90-day plans? And so taking advantage of the TAB Blueprint strategic planning tool is really important part of the foundation that TAB provides our business owners.
So
And
vision,
then,
tactical, love it.
and then you also asked about, consultants and other coaches. And so a consultant, generally speaking, you hire a consultant to tell you what you want to hear. You hire a consultant to do it for you. That's not what we do. When we coach, we're getting them to think for themselves. We want them to be better. They have to own it. They have to do it. This is not us doing it for them. Do we help them? Yes, of course. But they own it. There's that accountability to Denise's Masters of Action. And we're coaching them to be better, right? We're coaching them to, hey, I want to work you out of a job, man. Right. So, and that's a huge difference, because even asking questions that are thought provoking to get them to, and then all of a sudden the conversation can go any number of directions. But they're doing that. They're having those aha moments. And even some of them aren't aha moments, but it's still a click, a flip of the switch. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, or they hear somebody else in their board talk about an idea and like, oh, I have that same problem. Or how come it's the energy that comes with that is so powerful. But they do it themselves. It's their business. It's not our business. It's their business.
It sounds like these boards are so collaborative. Do you think that there is a direct correlation between how collaborative the boards themselves are to how collaborative the coaches at TAB are?
I think that we work hard to create an atmosphere and environment where collaboration happens. And so it's the questions that we ask, It's the relationships that are formed outside of the board setting. And that's been admittedly much more difficult through the pandemic. And I'm so excited over the last couple of months with, some of the pandemic starting to recede, that we're back in person again, that we can say, go meet with them for a cup of coffee, go have a beer together, get to know each other. Because I think, just like, the United States lost out on developing kind of closer relationships, it has been harder for peer groups to do that too. And it's very exciting to have some of the shackles coming off of us as we can reach out and start to reestablish warm personal relationships face to face, in person again.
Yes.
That goes back to the intimacy component. Another component to answer the question is also when you're working one-on-one with a coach, sure, we bring value, but this is just one perspective. Or, we're bringing a number, maybe representing a few different ideas. When you're part of a TAB Pure board, where there's no competitors, no key suppliers, right? No key customers, you have on any given board, I don't know, 200 to 300 years of experience and expertise from different industries. And so now you can bring a problem or opportunity to the table, and you can get a lot of different viewpoints. Sometimes they're all the same, but a lot of times you're going to get different perspectives, or, gee, that happened to me. And as a coach, I mean, all of us, we're just one person. So that's also a huge differentiator in the value of a board, a peer advisory board, versus the coaching. The coaching helps like lift off, right? It supplements, it supports, it helps get them to where they need to go.
And the idea of a board, and I like the term board because it's just not a mastermind group. It's not a bunch of people coming together in a forum. This is someone you're looking at as my board, right? I'm a business owner. This is my board. They're all going to be at different stages of growth themselves. They're all going to have areas where they have some expertise, where they're really good at sales and marketing, but maybe not so good at management or operations or whatever, and vice versa. So they're coming either one step ahead of you, one step behind you, or like you said, from a perspective that maybe we haven't seen in our own businesses, but someone can bring to it. So the idea of a board psychologically just changes everything for me, because these are people I'm going to be raw and honest with, because they are going to give me some wisdom that I don't have yet. Because if I did, I wouldn't be incurring this particular challenge right now. So just to see it that way is absolutely brilliant.
Rebecca, TAB has a wonderful process that all of us are certified in, and that has to do with how you provide value in answering a question that a board member might have. And so one of the things we work hard at doing is, not jumping in to solve before you have all of the perspective and the background information. And so asking clarifying questions, what is really going on here? What haven't you told us about that is affecting your ability to make this decision? Have you done this before and failed? What's your roadblock? And so these questions get asked in a very professional, pointed way with everyone who's part of the board. And when we have the whole thing fleshed out correctly, then and only then do we jump in and start to solve or give our opinions as to what might be a good next step or the way to solve this challenge. And so I think that having a board that's run effectively so that we are following a process to give the right solutions and the right weigh-ins is very important. And that is part of what the TAB franchise brings to the facilitators and the owners.
So back to this idea of a process, but at the same time, it's customized to the individual and their challenges. I often say it's all about asking the right question, right? If we have a problem, we have to ask the right question to solve it. It sounds like you have a process of questioning to get to the deeper whatever. And now maybe we have some solutions or ideas. My guess is, and this is just my guess, is by simply asking those questions, the business owner or the member probably figures it out simply by asking him or her those questions,
Very
right?
true. Very
They
true.
do. And also that questioning plays into a few things. So first of all, sometimes the question that people think is the problem is just a symptom of a deeper problem, which we find out through the questioning. But also, Tracy, to your question around holistic and the trust concept that we talked about, all of those details that you're unearthing in each of the topics that people are talking about, you're getting to know them, their business, their personal life, whatever it is, better. And that's the reason, I mean, our tab members, our clients stay with us many, many years, right? I mean, I think our average internationally is probably, 4 to 5 years. We have people who have been with tab, same word, for over 20 years. And they just, and they keep growing and scaling. There's always problems or issues, opportunities. And because of that those in-depth conversations, that questioning, they stay. I want to stay. No, I need my board. I like coming to my board meeting, right? So it all plays together for long-term lasting value and deep relationships.
Yeah.
So important to enjoy participating in a board, leading a board. I guess my question for you, just went in my head and went right out my head.
I've had that happen a few times.
My question for you is, I forgot my question for you. So
That's okay. I got 1,000 of them. I got 1,000 of them because we're talking to women here. And you brought in this whole concept of collaboration and trust and intimacy. And I have this board that I'm going to know for many years. Talk to us about women. What is the percentage of women to men on these boards or your clients? And do women participate differently than men?
So I think there's been a great shift in the 10 years or so that I've owned my Tab franchise, and I bought an established franchise. So there were already 75 members on in the company, and predominantly they were men. And so there has been such a shift over the last, I would say, 5 to 8 years, and even over the course of the pandemic, to more women business owners. And so the percent of women business owners in the United States is about 31% of small business owners owned by women, which is outstanding. And we want to see that grow. Mm-hmm. In Tab Balt Wash, we actually now are trending up close to 40%.
Wow.
And we have a lot of young female business owners. And one of the things I think is important is young female business owners, they are collaborative and they tend to be connected. And so they've been wonderful referrals for me for other women business owners. And so, I had a Tab owner say to me, how do I start to work to grow my women in business? And as part of Tab, and one of the things I say is, with some targeted recruiting and bringing in the right women business owners to your company, they're going to help you do that because they want to be around other bright, articulate, growth-oriented women, and so they're going to help you do that. So we are a place where we are inclusive, we love diversity, and we want to be a place where women business owners can thrive, and so can anyone else thrive within the Tab community.
what are some of the obstacles that you see women business owners faced with as opposed to their male counterparts?
So sometimes the obstacles are themselves, and I'll address that in just a second. But one of the things that women bring to the board that's different is we just have a different perspective. There's a different, in some cases, softness, like especially when you're talking about people. Like everybody has employees and everybody has problems with employees, and that's a given. And a woman will say, you can't do that. I mean, they'll look at them like, are you crazy for even asking your people to do that? And so it's just this whole other
Empathy.
yeah, right. That comes to the table, and it makes the men think, right? It makes them think, oh, I didn't think about that, or whatever. So that's really powerful. I think, Tracy, to your question, what gets in the way? Sometimes they get in their own way, kind of tripped up in their head and it can be negativity, it can be head trash, right? And just, it's like, you're just as good.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're better, sometimes you're not better, but you know what? You're still a human being, and you're just approaching these things differently. So be open-minded, listen to what somebody has to say, don't prejudge. Right, because that's a big so-and-so, they think differently than I am, and they're not even listening, right? So it's like, let's pay attention to what they have to say. Let's find the nuggets and talk about those nuggets. So I think those are issues. And then the other big issue that I see is time. I'm swamped. I'm trying to run my business. I have a family. I have kids. I get up. I do family stuff. Blah blah blah. I come to work. I have no time. I go home. I got homework, dinner, and those are obstacles for them, right? They just can't, and it's hard for us, right? Because we do feel like we are responsible for doing all of these things. So finding that balance and finding that it's okay to do whatever for yourself, go do it, right? Those are obstacles. And if you can just be kind to yourself, take care of yourself, then everything else is going to fall into place.
I think another obstacle is lack of financing. So we know that when startups occur, that, to get equity financing, the numbers are incredibly swayed toward investing in male-run companies and male startups versus in female startups. And I had one of my board members tell me that when she went in for financing to grow her company, she had a bank question her as to what her husband did. Now, I don't think there's any male who's going in for an investment that's going to be asked, what does your wife do? What role does she play within the company? And yet that was pointedly asked of her. And I think that we have to ensure that we prepare our female business owners with strong strategic plans and strong business plans, so that when they're requesting financing, we don't put them in a position where anyone asks them, what role does your significant other play in the business? And I do think that there is some bias there. It could be unconscious bias, but it certainly does exist, and women have to battle that. And I do want to put a plug in for why I think women business owners are successful and women business leaders are successful. And it goes back to what Blair was saying about these empathetic leadership skills and the ability to really put yourself in another's place and understand what's going on with our employees today. Women score very, very high in leadership skills in regards to how their male counterparts score. So there's a wonderful international survey that's been out for years, and it just got recently updated through the pandemic here, probably 3 or 4 months ago. And it rates women and male leaders across all over the world on their leadership skills, and they look at 16 different leadership skills. And since the pandemic, out of those 16 leadership skills, women significantly outscore their male counterparts in 13 of the 16. 13 of the 16. So companies really want to invest in diversity of their management groups and diversity of their leadership teams. And everyone should invest in the diversity of the business owner group as well, because with that comes this ability to really fuel the growth of our country, as Blair said, the engine of her community. And it comes from women leading in business and us finding ways to help them, build their ability to do that with financial backing, with confidence, with great strategy, because they are going to be part of the success of our country in the future.
Well articulated. I'm really glad you backed that with some stats. As you know, we're in the profiling business and we're constantly looking at what causes some people to be successful and others to struggle. We did a research project on 43 franchise organizations with 581 franchisees. Um, and ironically, 61% of the high performers were women. So that doesn't sound like a huge number until you realize less than 30% of franchisees are women. So they're rising to the top. So women are wired for business. Hopefully the banks and financial institutions will begin to see that we're wired for it. And to your point about the 16 markers, we did a study of women versus men and then broke it down by age also in emotional and social intelligence, which are massive markers towards leadership, as you pointed out, Denise. And again, it was 17 of the 20 markers, women outscored men. And we're seeing this in these next couple of generations. It's even better. So it'll be interesting to see how the world of business changes as women step up to the challenge, because I do think women are wired for business. And I love seeing two beautiful women here with Tab supporting women and seeing their special needs and having a way to help them through boards, through one-to-one coaching, etc. So Tracy, we need to wrap this up. I would love this conversation to go on for 6 hours.
Yeah.
So we may have to have you back. But before we close out, ladies, is there a question that we should have asked you that we didn't, that could help the women listeners, the women franchisors and executives, the future franchisees, the future business owners, the current women business owner? What question should we have asked you that we did not? Or what would you like to say to women in business that you think will leave them with, yes, I can do this?
I think one of the questions that I would ask of every woman is, what is stopping you from stepping up and, achieving the biggest personal vision that you possibly could have? Really analyze what are the things that are in your way, and then develop a plan to move them out. Overcome those obstacles and go for it, because there is an ability for everybody to achieve their dream, and we would want our women and our men to be able to go after, achieving that personal vision. And owning a business is a wonderful way to do that.
Yes. How about you, Blair?
I think I would start it even one step ahead of where Denise did, because all in there, right? I would encourage women, but everybody, but women for sure, like, be bold. Like, first of all, really think, what do you want your life to be? What is the quality of life that you want? Because it's different for some. Some are like, I'm a 10 to 2 gal. The others, right? Like, I am all in. But whatever you want that ultimate vision to be, wherever you want to live, what you want to be doing, like, be all in, but get real clarity or get help getting that clarity around what that looks like. And don't just jump in, but think about the whole picture, right? Life, quality, family, social, financial, health and fit, all of that, because it all plays together.
So where do you want your life to be? From Blair. And from Denise, what's preventing you? What's getting in the way? Let's get it out of the way so you can have this beautiful vision. Tracy, final thoughts from you, my friend.
Yes, this was such an empowering conversation. I feel the energy from it. So I happen to have remembered my question from earlier, but I'm going to use it as a wrap up, because it was about the clarifying questions, which you each mentioned, and that I can see how asking those clarifying questions really pull back the layers of the onion, so that not only are you helping to reframe the question and the obstacle, but that the business owners are also seeing what's in their blind spot And that's what we're all about. Also, at Oracle Profiles is helping people to see what's in their blind spot. So I applaud the work that you're doing. I'm excited to learn more about this process. And I know it's proprietary, but I think TAB is just doing an amazing job with teaching its coaches and sharing the knowledge and just having this ripple effect out in society. So thank you both for joining us today.
And
Thank
for
you,
making a
Professor.
difference. And for making a difference, ladies.
Difference.
Yes. So thank you again, ladies. We sincerely appreciate it. And those of you listening in, thank you for listening in to The Franchise Woman, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships are forged. We'll see you next week for another episode.